And he said, you are proof. This is what President Rivlin told the children. You are proof that we can live side by side in peace. Since the U.S. Embassy is a proud supporter of the school, and I had that opportunity to visit as well, I want to echo his comments that the dugma ishit, the personal example set by the children and the parents and the teachers of that school about how it's possible to overcome despair and provide hope and live collectively in peace and harmony is very inspiring for all Israelis and for people really across this region and around this world. President Rivlin's reached across some of Israel's most sensitive internal divides. He's connected with Israel's youth. He's built bridges between different sectors. It's a continuation of a lifetime of public service to the Zionist cause and to the State of Israel. And now, as Israel's 10th president, he's really leaving an indelible impression. So on behalf of the American people, I want to salute President Rivlin. Israel, of course, is heading into an election season, just as in the United States or in any democracy. Israel's citizens, who are blessed with the right to vote that the citizens of all democracies cherish, face critical choices about the future of their country. Only they can make those choices, and we wish them well as this political season unfolds. When the campaign is over, the United States looks forward to working closely with the new government chosen by the Israeli people, and we're always deeply committed to finding more ways to deepen this already extraordinary partnership between our countries. Now, when I addressed this conference 2 years ago, I spoke about the unique and unparalleled relationship between the United States and Israel, and I stressed that our ties are anchored by common strategic interests and common values of two democracies. Under President Obama's leadership, we have found numerous ways to further deepen our extraordinary ties, including building what I consider now to be a third pillar of our relationship, and that is the pursuit of our common prosperity. Our partnership now encompasses robust economic and commercial ties that have created tens of thousands of jobs for Israelis and for Americans. And other countries, I have to say, are looking on with some envy as we've transformed what was at one time purely a political and strategic relationship into a powerful engine of economic growth for both of us. Next year marks the 30th anniversary of both the U.S.-Israel Free Trade Agreement and the establishment of the Joint Economic Development Group, our annual economic dialogue. Since that free trade agreement was signed in 1985, our trade between our countries has multiplied eightfold. It now stands at over $45 billion a year. Israel has invested over $10 billion in the American economy. American companies have done a similar amount here, as we see with the many, many American companies that have set up research and development centers. Frankly, years before the term startup nation was coined, the United States and Israel set up a unique binational science and industrial research incubator that's funded hundreds of projects that have helped develop Israel's technology sector. Necessity may be the mother of invention. It is, and that was part of what was behind the establishment of this fund. But you still need brain power, you need collective will, you need collaboration. You know, there are very well-known examples of that technological cooperation, but this particular joint venture, known as the Bird Foundation, is sometimes one of the unsung heroes, and many of the projects it has sponsored have been results-oriented, have been brought innovative products to market, and as I said, have strengthened Israel's technology sector. Frankly, across the entire high-tech sector, our relationship is booming. American companies currently account for 2/3 of the roughly 300 international research and development centers in Israel, in which critical components of leading American high-tech products are invented and designed right here in Israel for marketing across the globe. During his visit to Israel last year, President Obama said, if you want to see the future of the world economy, look at Tel Aviv, the home of hundreds of startups and research centers. So we congratulate the innovators, the inventors, the leading-edge entrepreneurs who are working to further expand and build the economic connections between the United States and Israel. These are, in many ways, the new pioneers, the new chalutzim, who are helping to ensure our common prosperity. Now, as impressive as the last 30 years of accomplishments have been, we are looking to the future and working together to improve the trade and investment climate, to harness the still untapped potential of our economic partnership, and to build new regional partnerships that will strengthen us both. American companies are already helping develop Israel's natural gas infrastructure and supplying expertise that's helping Israel become more energy independent and solidifying strategic ties with key neighbors like Egypt and Jordan. And we're going to look forward to working together with Israeli counterparts to ease regulatory challenges and facilitate further American investment, including in the natural gas, independent power, clean power, and solar energy fields. Now, here in Israel, I know attention is quite understandably also focused on the challenges of peace and security. And America's enduring investment in Israel's security and in the pursuit of peace between Israel and its neighbors remains a bedrock commitment of the United States. It's an investment in Israel's future that's been affirmed by multiple presidents, supported by the United States Congress under the leadership of both parties, and is cherished, frankly, by the American people as well. American leadership in support of Israel can be measured through the deep ties and joint training that goes on every single day between our militaries, the unprecedented intelligence cooperation, which makes both of our nations safer by pooling the resources of our intelligence experts, our fight to defend Israel constantly from delegitimization and unfair targeting in international organizations, and our investment in life-saving, cutting-edge defense technologies like Iron Dome and Arrow and David's Sling. When Israel needs America, Israel knows that we have its back. We're not only on the front lines and in the trenches, we're in the trenches with Israel. America also is there for Israel on its home front. Whether it was the challenge of absorbing waves of immigrants or responding to the Carmel fire 4 years ago, or now providing technical assistance to the catastrophic oil spill in the Arava, you can count on America's help. President Obama and his administration are constantly striving to develop new avenues to nurture and sustain opportunities for peace and security. Israelis experienced this firsthand during President Obama's historic visit to Israel last year. In his speech in Jerusalem, he made a simple but very profound argument. Peace is necessary, peace is just, and most importantly, to those who might give in to despair, peace is possible. I've experienced it firsthand with him as well. When Israelis were subject to an onslaught of terrorist rocket and terrorist tunnel attacks, President Obama demonstrated unwavering support of Israel's right to defend itself by itself. His personal engagement in the diplomacy to bring the barrage of rocket attacks against Israel to an end during the Gaza conflicts of 2012 and 2014 also reflected this resolve. We've seen it up close you've seen America's commitment up close every time Secretary Kerry visits the region, drawn by his strong desire to help Israelis and Palestinians resolve their conflict in spite of the well-known obstacles to that goal. Our leadership was on full display last month when Secretary Kerry made an urgent visit to Amman to meet with Jordanian, Israeli, and Palestinian leaders, including a trilateral meeting with King Abdullah and Prime Minister Netanyahu to work toward restoring calm and de-escalating tensions in Jerusalem. And I want to restate the United States' firm belief in the importance of maintaining the status quo at the city's holy sites, which was among the principles all the leaders in Amman articulated. Now, it's also critical to restate our core principle that violence and terrorism and the incitement that can lead to them are completely unacceptable. The United States has repeatedly condemned the terrorist attacks of the last weeks and months, including the horrific attacks by cars at the light rail stations in which innocents were murdered, the abhorrent attempt to kill Yehuda Glick, a spate of recent stabbings, and of course the brutal murders at the synagogue in Har Nof. Simply put, there is never a justification for murder and terror. As we think about the value, though, of continuing to pursue an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, just consider for a moment how much more difficult it would have been to unwind what has transpired in recent weeks and lower the tensions without the safety net of the long-standing Arab-Israeli peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan. Those have provided critical stability and a means to try to de-escalate these tensions, and therefore we see it as in everybody's interest to try to continue to expand that circle, and it's vital that that joint security cooperation continue. A lasting peace settlement, of course, will only come about through direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. Palestinian initiatives at the United Nations, UN, Israeli settlement activities, or other unilateral measures by either party are simply counterproductive and only delay a resolution of the conflict. And while we're realistic and know that peace negotiations cannot resume during an Israeli election campaign, we're going to continue to explore the most effective way to reestablish a political horizon as soon as possible, without which we believe the current atmosphere could quickly deteriorate. But the main reason we remain committed to achieving a two-state solution is, frankly, that we see no alternative that would achieve Israel's legitimate goals of peace, security, and recognition, or Palestinians' legitimate goals of self-determination in a state of their own. No alternative that would protect the United States' interests as well. That's what Secretary Kerry said on Sunday at the Saban Forum. There is no one-state alternative. There's no other solution that is viable or that would preserve Israel's status as a Jewish state and a democracy. For all the understandable doubts harbored by Israelis and Palestinians, there's no alternative to two states for two peoples, ending the conflict with both states living side by side in peace, security, and recognition. And we believe it can be done. For all the doubts, we are committed to keeping that hope alive. As you know, the United States also remains intensely focused on the campaign to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. President Obama has stated the objective unequivocally, and he's also said it here in Israel in no uncertain terms. The United States will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon, period. And the United States is prepared to use all elements of our national power to achieve that objective. This past weekend at the Saban Forum in Washington, Vice President Biden said, "A diplomatic solution still represents the best and most sustainable path to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran." And at the same time, we've maintained the toughest sanctions regime ever imposed on any nation with strong multilateral support and ensured that we have a credible military option as well. Throughout these negotiations, we've coordinated extraordinarily closely with our Israeli partners. At times, we have had certain tactical disagreements with Israel about the correct approach to the negotiations. But I want to emphasize these are tactical disagreements, and they come within the broader context of our total alignment on the broader strategic imperative of preventing an Iranian nuclear weapon and our close and intimate dialogue that runs in parallel to the P5+1 process. In fact, I was in Washington for the latest iteration of our U.S.-Israel consultative group last October. It's the most senior level coordination mechanism we have to deal with Iran and other regional issues, and I can tell you firsthand that the dialogue between the most senior leaders in our governments on this question is second to none. It's kept us aligned, and it's informed our negotiating strategy. Frankly, we're both committed to the same principle, that no deal is better than a bad deal. And the evidence that that's the United States position was the decision to extend the negotiations last month. Iran simply was not prepared to make the necessary concessions to provide certainty that it would never acquire a nuclear weapon. Enough progress was made to warrant an extension, and we believe a deal is possible, and our international partners remain united, so an extension was the right decision. But there's only going to be a deal if Iran can only achieve the relief it seeks from sanctions if it shows far more flexibility in the negotiations ahead. Now, none of these challenges are easy, and we're sober about them. But one constant that is not going to change is U.S. leadership in this region and in support of all these efforts. U.S. leadership in the campaign to stop Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. U.S. leadership in nurturing the partnerships we've established and sustained with the moderate regimes of the Middle East. U.S. leadership in the campaign we're leading against violent extremists, including the international coalition to degrade and ultimately defeat and destroy the brutal organization known as Daesh. U.S. leadership in our constant defense of Israel's security and legitimacy, and U.S. leadership in the ongoing quest for a solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and a comprehensive Arab-Israeli peace. The United States will continue to lead the way in all of these efforts and will continue to uphold our ironclad commitment to Israel's security and strengthening the alliance between our two great democracies. Thank you very much.